The main result of the year is that the war did not end, but even grew. With the help of the Hamas terrorist attack on Israel, the Kremlin managed to spark a war in the Middle East. Now Israel is eliminating terrorists, Akbars are running around the world with rags of Palestine, the UN is not removing the mask of concern from its face, and Russia's aggression in Ukraine has noticeably moderated. The counter-offensive of the Ukrainian armed forces did not bring the desired results due to the insufficient supply of effective types of weapons from the Allies and the lack of a proper production base in Ukraine itself, which could raise the military-industrial complex to the proper level, but has not yet done so. The topic of corruption in Kyiv has been heard all year, willingly fueled by Moscow. And the Kremlin itself was choking on the rhetoric of the blackmailer. The explosion of the Kakhovka hydroelectric power station convinced everyone that the Russians are still scumbags, and it is better not to joke with the captured Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The head of the IAEA, Grossi, traveled to occupied Energodar in the hope that the mine station would not be blown up, and so far, indeed, it has not been blown up. Throughout 2023, Russia was pupating and intensely isolated from the inside, while outside it was poured with Cold War-era concrete, issuing an arrest warrant for Putin himself from the International Criminal Court. However, the dictator did not dare to go to the G20 summit in South Africa, where they could not guarantee bald immunity. But he met with Xi Jinping in March, and later flew to Bishkek, the Emirates and Saudi Arabia, demonstrating his traveling abilities to the gang. The main trend adopted by the system is to stay with Putin to the end, following the weak-willed thread behind the fascist needle. The topic of eliminating Putin himself becomes all the more relevant, which will certainly provoke destructive processes at the top and in the center of the vertical, sowing chaos below. But no one is taking this step yet. Either it's scary, or there are no professionals of this level. Europe is closing its borders, and Russians are being treated as carriers of an imperial threat that has risen from the Soviet crypt. Sweden is about to officially join NATO, having received approval from Turkey. Finland has already joined the alliance and closed its borders with the Russian Federation, appreciating the Russian hybrid technologies using migrants. The Finns even signed a security treaty with the United States, which should become a deterrent for the frostbitten Russians. And in Washington, they are looking for ways to withdraw the frozen Kremlin $300 billion. By the second anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the G7 countries will prepare a legislative framework that will allow these funds to be withdrawn and used to support Ukraine. In response, the Kremlin threatens to sever diplomatic relations with the United States and unleashes a repressive machine within the Russian Federation. After the grab of squeezing out the remnants of Western business, the bandits demonstrably took on their own. They smashed the Gulag amateur activities in Kirkorov's feathers and ran into MTS Yevtushenkov's patrimony. They devoured the enemies they began to gnaw on homegrown cattle. If things continue like this, then luxury-class organisms will come next after premium bloggers, loyal oligarchy, parliamentary and ministerial chicken legs, and then super-luxury carcasses are not far away. So, under the motto, "We have no untouchables," they will devour all sorts of Mishustins, Siluanivs and even Nabiulina, who is unlikely to hold onto a dead ruble. And endless rate hikes will kill any business. If in 2023 the prolongation of the war was a blessing for Putin, then in the next it will become a curse. Money is not endless, neither is the meat population, and Ukraine declares the need to transform the war into technology. It is modern weapons that will be able to turn the tide of the war and make the meat strategy of the Rashists a losing one. So far, the Kremlin is trying to play on Europeans' fatigue with Ukraine, shaking societies along the way with migrant horror stories and the cries of populists, but this is not working to the extent that it was intended. The barrier in the form of Orban has worked for the last time, and the Slovak Fico will not go all out. Protests have already swept across Slovakia, and they will only grow. The intra-fascist opposition, squeezed out of the cave, got under the feet of the political establishment, now waving a portrait of the Nazi Navalny, now making noise at caricatured gatherings of governments in exile. The general impression is of infantiles, stuffed with agents, trying to keep a good face while being completely impotent. Expectations within the Russian Federation for the upcoming 24th are akin to the expression, "You can't breathe before you die." Until Putin's re-establishment, the structure will somehow be maintained, but after that, the system may go wrong. First of all, due to the collapse of the remnants of Putinomics. It's time to bury the Moscow boy exchange today after the St. Petersburg one, and no one will say what will happen at the end of March. How much will $1 or the same 10 eggs that cheered up the furry people at the end of the 23rd really cost? How will Putin respond if the Ukrainian armed forces splash down the Crimean bridge? Against the backdrop of the meat depletion of the outback, will the bald man decide on general mobilization? Will it risk shaking up the major cities of St. Petersburg and Moscow? The coming year is the last in which Putin can still gain something, but the price of Kremlin victories will be much higher than the year before. A period of depletion of the resource base and the exhaustion of Putin's agenda for the system itself is coming. Either Putin wins right now, or the system abandons him and reboots. For now, she gives him carte blanche, marching with spoilers on the stumps. But she will not forgive him for a major defeat. All that remains is to understand. Is the West ready for the collapse of the cave, or is it afraid of this even more than a war with Russia? We will also get an answer to this question in the coming year.